The next day, Ushio comes to Yugi and tells him that he has something to show him. It turns out that he's done Yugi the favor of kicking the ever-loving crap out of the two guys who have been making his high school experience a living nightmare. Rather than do what any other kid would do in his situation, that being revel in the suffering of his tormentors, or maybe that's just me, Yugi instead opts to defend Honda and Jonouchi, proclaiming them to be his friends. Well, since they're the only people who actually talk to him on a daily basis, I guess that kinda qualifies them to be his pals. But the whole stealing his most prized possessions thing makes it kinda iffy. Ushio then demands payment for a job well done. He wants 200,000 yen. Oh man, that must be at least $10. How is Yugi ever going to afford it? Yugi looks decidedly flustered, and Ushio asks if it's because he didn't hit them enough. I can't speak for Yugi, but in my case, yes, I was severely disappointed by the lack of pummeling. I demand more pummels! Dissatisfied, Ushio proceeds to try and break every bone in Yugi's tiny body. This, folks, is one of the running themes in the Yu-Gi-Oh manga. Everybody tries to beat the crap out of Yugi. It's like his body is a fist magnet or something. While he's being decimated, Yugi thinks to himself, I said I would wish for friends. Friends who would never betray me no matter what. And friends whom I would never betray. Yeah, but you also wish to see Anzu's underwear, so in a way you kinda had this coming, bucko. Ushio then pulls out a f***ing knife and proceeds to lick it while telling Yugi he could teach him the real meaning of pain. How the hell did this guy become a motorcycle riding officer of the law? Yugi is downtrodden, thinking, I couldn't beat him in 100 years. And since Ushio is a Highlander, it would probably take him that long to do it too. That evening, Yugi counts his hard-earned cash. He has well under 2,000 yen, which means he has only one option left. Sell his body on the street. Well, either that or he could pawn the rare Egyptian artifact he has sitting right there in front of him. But no, rather than do the obvious and way more logical thing, Yugi spends the rest of the night trying to finish it. And to his surprise, it's suddenly ridiculously easy to solve. Wow, next time I get stuck in Professor Layton, I'm just going to walk up to the nearest school bully and ask them to beat me within an inch of my life. To his elation, Yugi is just one piece away from finishing the puzzle, but the last piece isn't there. Upon learning this, he immediately starts freaking out like a kid whose World of Warcraft privileges were just revoked. But all is not lost, for at the last moment, Sugoroku shows up and reveals that he has the final piece to the puzzle in his moist, clammy fingers. Do I even need to mention his enormous hand at this point? Yugi dry humps his grandpa out of sheer gratitude, but Sugoroku explains that Jonouchi delivered this puzzle piece by himself, having retrieved it from the bottom of the pool. Yugi gives this barely a moment's thought before returning to his obsessive puzzle-solving habits. So yeah, he finishes the Millennium Puzzle, and he is immediately consumed by dark energies that threaten to tear his soul apart, fluids leaking from his ears as he chants bizarre nonsense words and his eyes roll back into their sockets. It's like something from The Exorcist, only not nearly as funny. Later, Ushio is standing on the school grounds, apparently having been called there at midnight by Yugi. Wait a minute. Midnight? A school? Is this going to turn into Persona 3? Is Yugi going to show up holding an evoker? Then Ushio turns around and... Good of you to come, Ushio-san. I'm selling Girl Scout cookies. Would you like to try some? Ushio is bemused, saying he's glad Yugi decided to pay up, but he's not sure why he's wearing a costume. Wait, what costume? He's in his school uniform. I don't get it. Anyway, Yugi takes out the money, saying that he appears to have brought 400,000 yen by mistake. Yeah, that happens to me all the time. I get possessed by evil demons and I accidentally carry twice the amount of money I actually need. It's really annoying. But there's a catch, explains Yugi. We're going to play a game. Oh god, here we go. Get ready for a long drawn-out children's card game. But wait, what's this? No, it seems Yugi wants to play a different kind of game. In this game, you place money on top of your hand and use a knife to stab through it as far as you can. You get to keep however many bills you pierce, and then the opponent takes turns with the remainder. Little does Yugi know, Ushio is a Highlander, and the knife will only affect him if he accidentally slices off his own head. You know, maybe this is why the characters in this manga have such enormous appendages. All of their party games involve severely injuring their own hands. Ushio does pretty well in the game for the first few turns, but he quickly discovers that his greed has begun to control his hand, and he won't be able to use the knife without stabbing himself. So he does what any rational human being would do in this situation: attempt to commit first-degree murder. Yugi jumps about 50 feet in the air to avoid the knife. Wait, what? Has he been collecting all the agility orbs in Crackdown or something? What gives here? Yugi grins wildly. Just as I thought. You couldn't follow the rules. Meanwhile, Ushio is spazzing out at the fact that Yugi now has a third eye. It's not quite as impressive as the girl with 3 breasts in Total Recall, but I guess it's kinda cool. Penalty game! Yugi points at Ushio and he immediately starts to see money everywhere. I believe this is the same reaction Shigeru Miyamoto had when they first released the Nintendo Wii. The next day, Yugi shows up to school with the Millennium Puzzle clasped tightly between his enormous fingers, while Ushio sits in a pile of leaves and garbage and sings about how rich he is. And then he starts to hallucinate that he is a police officer in the distant future. Oh wait, that's supposed to actually happen. Yugi hooks up with Jonochi, who is still sporting his injuries, but he's relatively happy. He tells Yugi that he also brought a treasure with him, and that his is in plain sight, but you can't see it. Pedo Bear? Oh, it turns out that it's friendship. Yugi and Jonochi are visible, but our friendship is invisible. Invisible? Does that mean it's going to go crazy and try to rape everyone like Kevin Bacon in Hollow Man? Jonochi is suddenly embarrassed by their bromance and he rushes off to class, followed closely by Yugi. And thus begins the epic tale of Yu-Gi-Oh! Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Where were all the card games? Well, would it surprise you to learn that card games don't even feature in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Manga for around 7 chapters? I know, it's insane! Yu-Gi-Oh! Without the card games? It's almost as though the story had substance or something. Anyway, that about wraps up this review. I hope you all enjoyed it, and remember,
there can be only one.